Hello everyone, Lapis here, and welcome to part 2 of my ranking of everything in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. And yeah, I know it's been over a month, but I got distracted with some other stuff. Anyway, last time we ranked all the monsters, so if you're interested in that, you can go check it out. But this time, we're gonna be ranking everything else in Rise and Sunbreak, like the locales and various mechanics. Also, just like last time, remember that these are purely my own opinions. And with that, let's get straight into it. Let's start things off with the Palamutes, which are the new companions we get in Rise. While Palicos are more support, Palamutes go more on the offensive, with being more aggressive and such. Too bad I don't actually really know about any of that though, because I haven't actually upgraded my Palamute at all. I literally just use it to get around. In fact, I wish there was an option for the Palamute to run away when a fight starts and to come back when the monster starts to move zones, just so it doesn't take aggro in the fight. But yeah, you can also do pretty much everything on the Palamute. Pick up stuff, heal, even sharpen, which is cool, but also kinda busted, as it takes a bit of the risk out of fights, but that's fine with how much faster Rise is. All in all though, I really just use the Palamute for its movement, and just for that, they're an S for me. Moving on to our other companions, which we all know, are the Palicos, which I actually stopped using sometime in World. Whether it was before or after Iceborne came out is a bit foggy, but I had just stopped using them because I got tired of them taking aggro, which is honestly a bit stupid because I played multiplayer like a lot in World. So it didn't even matter if I didn't have the Palico. But I did do a lot of solo hunting, so But yeah, I just haven't used Palicos at all in Rise, so I can't really rate them at all, can I? So I'll put them right in the middle because I have no opinion on them. Our first locale in Rise, or well, hub, is Kamura Village, which is pretty nice. It's no Celiana by any means, but I still like it. Everything you need is pretty close by, so you don't have to run around everywhere, and if you do, we have the Wirebugs that we can use in the hubs, which is great. The whole theme and tone of the village just feels really homey. I really like it. But it's not my favorite of the two hubs, so I'm gonna give it an A. It's pretty good. Now onto our actual first locale is the Shrine Ruins, and it's okay. I don't have any really strong feelings about the area, it's just a pretty solid map. Though the bottom two zones do feel a little useless, as I just don't fight anything there most of the time. Like, you could cut out those two zones and the area wouldn't feel that different. It's a solid B map for me. I think it could be a little better. The best zones would have to be 6, 10, and 9, as they're just nice, big, and mostly flat areas. On the other hand, the worst zones would have to be Zone 13, as it's just really cramped, which is a shame because it's one of the nicer looking zones in the area. The Frost Islands is actually the worst locale for me. The only thing I would really say I like about the area is the squids that can give you buffs. But besides that, the whole area just looks absolutely dreadful, and it's just the worst looking area in the game. It doesn't help that I have Hoarfrost Reach to compare it to either, which, yeah, I really shouldn't be comparing to, with how different the two games are. But anyway, Frost Islands can go in the garbage. It's a D for me. Best zones would have to be 7 and 9, while the worst would have to be 4, as it's just too small and doesn't really need to be a zone at all. I think I've only fought in it like twice, and that's like the 2 times I've fought Aurora Somnicanth, which is just a dreadful monster. The Sandy Plains, on the other hand, is an excellent zone. I love it so much. It doesn't help that it's pretty hard to mess up a desert area, right? It's just one of the best looking areas in the game, with really nice lighting and overall just a really nice color palette. Almost all the zones are pretty flat as well, so you won't get stuck on any ledges or have some slope nonsense happen, aside from 2 zones. I do wish there were some more great Wirebugs around than that, but aside from that, it's just a really good map, S tier. The best zones would have to be 7, as it's just the best one, and Zone 10 as a close second, with just being a nice giant flat area with the sand traps that appear if you or the monster destroys the stone pillars or whatever they're called. While the worst zones would have to be this half of Zone 9 with the sand dunes, and this half of Zone 8 with this big ass slope. The Flooded Forest is a pretty solid area, while I do wish it was a bit more vibrant and the water was more clean. Aside from that, I don't really have anything bad to say about the area. The zones are pretty good, except 2 that just feel too small, and the map isn't that big, so getting around is pretty fast. It's a good area, A tier. The best zones would have to be Zone 1, then Zone 7, and finally Zone 11, with it just being the best one fighting on top of this waterfall. It's just the best looking one. Meanwhile, the worst zones would have to be 12 and 3, because they just feel too small and cramped. Also, the ledges in Zone 3 can be a bit annoying at times. The Lava Caverns is also a pretty good map, with the majority of the map being inside the caverns. There's not a lot of great Wirebugs around, so getting around can be a bit of a pain, but it's not that bad with a lot of the areas being close together. Not to mention the area theme absolutely slaps at that one part. Like, my god, man, they did not have to go that hard. Best zones would have to be 12, as it just feels the best when fighting up there, while the worst zone would have to be the right side of Area 5, being not only slopey but also having ledges. Our final zone of Rise is the Infernal Springs, which is our late game area, where we fight some of the most challenging fights, like the Hazard Apexes and some other cool monsters, like the introduction to Violet Mizu, and also being Amatsu's arena, which is amazing. It's pretty good and is a nice little area. The only thing I can really complain about is that slope on the right side of the arena. A tier. Moving on to Sunbreak's areas, we start with Elgato Outpost, the main hub of Sunbreak, and my favourite of the 2 hub areas, because it's honestly just so good. Everything about it is just great. It's really compact, so everything is within like one Wirebug dash. It just looks amazing. The music, all the characters here, like, this is my home in Rise. I love this little outpost so much, and honestly wish it was just a little bigger. It's an S for me. The jungle is single-handedly my favourite locale in the game. It's a really small map, so getting around is easy, not to mention all the great Wirebugs around the place, which help even more, and all the areas are just connected really nicely. It's also just the best looking locale in my opinion. The only thing that's missing from it is Lagiacrus. Jokes aside though, it's an S tier map for me. Best zones would have to be 11 with a nice beach view, 3 being the overall best zone in the locale, mixing the beach and the jungle, and 1 being a nice little jungle area with the boulders we can knock down. That just reminds me of a big ancient forest boulder in World. While the worst zone would have to be Zone 10, because you just never really fight anything down there, plus the ledges in there can just be annoying as hell. The Citadel is also an amazing area with how it tries and mixes 3 areas together. You got the swamp, which I do wish was just a little better, the castle, town area, and the snowy area, which honestly all blend together really nicely. Not to mention how dense the map is, with so many nooks and crannies to explore, which blend really nicely into the environment. The areas just feel really nice to transition between as well, and being on this map is always a great time. The Citadel would have to be my favourite area right after the jungle. The best zones would have to be 13, as it's a really nice looking area, and we got all the funny toads there. Not to mention, if you knock a monster over in the sap, it'll be knocked down for longer, which is neat. Zone 9, as it's just a really nice ice cavern and a bit more of what I wish the Frost Islands looked like. And Zone 7, as it just feels so epic to fight up there with the whole background and having to ascend up there. I love this zone so much. Like, it feels like an endgame zone, and I kind of wish they just made it bigger and into its own arena to fight in. While the worst zone would have to be Zone 12, as it just feels really cramped in there if you're fighting like a pretty big monster. And our final area of Sunbreak is Forlorn Arena, our endgame arena for Sunbreak. And yeah, it's a good little arena that we fight some of the hardest monsters of the game in. I don't really have anything to say about it besides that sometimes it can feel just a bit small if you're in a corner, but besides that, it's a really good arena. S tier. Our first mechanic in Rise is Wyvern Riding, which is honestly really fun, being able to ride a monster into battle and control it, which is just really cool. But Wyvern Riding can be a bit tedious at times. Like, some Wyvern rides just aren't worth it with how slow they are, or when you're in late game and you're better off just not doing it because you end up doing more damage than the actual Wyvern rides. Take Basarios, for example. It's easily the worst Wyvern ride with how slow and pointless it is, while you have Rajang, where you can just spam its lightning beam if you have a Wirebugs. I will say it is nice mid-fight when you first knock them down, since it gives you a little break to sharpen and heal and all that before you can run it into a wall or take it who knows where. The main problem with Wyvern Riding is just how it's changed monster interactions. Like, unless you're in an arena quest, you'll never really see two monsters in the same zone for more than a minute. Not to mention what it's done to invaders, turning them more into a benefit than a real threat. Maybe if you couldn't ride invaders, but I don't know. Wyvern Riding is okay, and I do like it, but I think it could be implemented better, so I'm gonna give it an A. Now for what I would say is the main feature of Rise, which is the Wirebugs, and since they are the main feature, they better be damn good. And yeah, they sure as hell are. They give us so much mobility with being able to dash everywhere. We also have the great Wirebugs that we can find around each locale in the game, which can help us travel between certain areas in a short span of time. They also allow us to perform switch skills, which we'll get into in a minute. All in all, Wirebugs are a great addition, which help us out so much. They're S tier for me, they're really fun. Now onto switch skills, which allows us to change the way our weapon works, like changing our hammer from strength style, which is the usual way hammer works, which I will say feels a little weird in Rise for some reason, and I don't know why, to courage style, which allows us to perform a kind of combo of charge attacks, which is really fun. I absolutely love courage style so much. Switch skills also allow us to use our Wirebugs to perform special moves with our weapons, like Impact Crater for hammer, the big gun lance dash, another counter for longsword, cause let's be honest, it definitely really needed it. Every weapon does get some kind of movement option, which is nice, it's great. Not to mention we can also switch between two sets of skills in combat with the blue and red scrolls, so you can change up your moveset mid-combat if you want, which can be really fun. All in all, switch skills are a key part to Rise and just so fun to mess around with. I absolutely love them so much. They're S tier. At the start of the game, we get given a pedalace that lets us collect buffs from spirit birds when we run by them in areas that we keep until the end of the quest. We can also switch between different pedalaces, which can improve the effect from certain birds or give a balanced increase to a certain stat. The only problem I have with the spirit birds is just going around and collecting them, as sometimes they can feel a bit out of the way. Of course, you don't have to go out of your way to find them. They do help, but you don't absolutely need them, or at least I don't. If you do want to go gather spirit birds, go do that. I'm not going to stop you. Play the game how you want. There are also some decorations that can speed up the process of gathering them as well, like Spirit Bird's Call that gives you one spirit bird every minute. All in all though, in endgame, I really just want to hunt the monster and not go out of my way to hunt spirit birds, even if they do give really good buffs. I think they're neat, and I don't particularly hate them, so they're B for me. Now Endemic Life, which is a really big feature in Rise, and honestly really cool with how we can use them in each hunt. Of course, we got all the stamina, defense, and attack butterflies, which are nice buffs to collect, but we also have other Endemic Life, which can be really helpful and just really strong, like the marionette spider that lets us pull a monster towards us into a wall or whatever to knock him down. Of course, all the toads return that can do different effects like paralyze, sleep, or blast. There's also the starburst bugs on some walls that can absorb elements, which we can slam a monster into for some high damage and inflict with said element. Of course, there's also some helpful endemic life, like the Beware that can buff healing items, or the Antidobra that can counter poisons. But yeah, the endemic life in Rise is just so helpful in hunts and really strong. Like, you can just run around a locale collecting all the Endemic Life, which, like, when you do them in combat and just keep knocking the monster over and over. Take the Citadel, for example, which just has so much Endemic Life. It can honestly feel a bit unfair with how strong they are. Like, this little toad paralyzing this giant beast. But I absolutely love how we use Endemic Life in Rise. They're an S tier for me. Now, the Melding Pot is how we get our decorations in Rise, and honestly, after getting the decoration I needed, I stopped using it and don't really remember how it works. I'm pretty sure we just put materials in, go do a hunt, and see what we got after. But yeah, it's basically gambling. After defeating Chaotic Gore though, we can select the main stat we want, which is honestly fantastic. But yeah, after getting like the decoration I needed, I just didn't use it and forgot how it works, so it's a B for me. Now, the Rampage is Rise's big gimmick, which is basically just a tower defense in Monster Hunter, where we can summon various defenses and allies to fend off the oncoming monsters. And yeah, that's about it. A lot of people don't like it, and it's pretty obvious to see why, as it's just so different from the rest of the game and doesn't really feel like it serves a purpose outside of the story. Also, it doesn't help that when the game first came out, you had to slug through the whole Rampage just to fight the Apex monsters before they got their own quests, which sucks. And, well, there's more, but I'll explain after this. All in all though, I think the Rampage was really neat, but yeah, I don't really like it. But I also don't hate it. I think it could have been done a lot better, or honestly just as a separate game entirely. But it's not the worst thing in the world. Plus, I don't ever really see it returning in the future. So it's a B for me. Now, the Apexes are some of the toughest monsters that we can fight in base Rise, being powered up versions of said monsters. Too bad outside of fighting them, they kinda suck ass. Basically, the Apexes offer literally nothing outside of a fun, challenging fight. There's no armor or weapons. Well, there are in the Rampage tree, but they kind of suck. And even the story behind them sucks. Like, they got caught up in a Ibushi storm and powered up. Like, what? That's it? The worst thing about them, though, would have to be that they're basically just the deviants from Generations. You got Bloodbath Diablos, Dread King Rathlos, and all that. Like, why didn't they just bring the deviants back, or at least bring back their armor and change the color scheme to fit the Apex's darker tones? I don't know, the Apexes just feel poorly implemented, so I'm gonna give them a B, since they do offer fun fights at least. Now, Afflicted Monsters are the endgame of Sunbreak, which appear after we defeat the big bad, Geismagorn, as the Curio have no host and decide to run rampant, afflicting monsters, making them stronger and just causing havoc. They offer harder fights, which is fantastic, as it also makes the starting monsters somewhat of a threat again, which is really great. Not to mention that you can't capture them, so you have to fight to the death. And once the afflicted monsters get mad enough, they'll enter an afflicted state, where we have to target specific areas to destroy the anomaly cores, which is rewarding as 1, they do a lot of damage, and 2, can knock them out of their afflicted state for a time. Afflicted monsters can also inflict you with Blood Blight, which is really cool and adds even more of a challenge to the fight. We can also collect special materials depending on the level of the afflicted monster, which allows us to upgrade our weapons and armor even further. And depending on the level of our anomaly investigations, we can encounter more difficult and harder monsters, with even having the Apexes appearing at some point. As of the moment recording this, I've only reached to level 200 out of 300 in anomaly investigations, so I haven't seen the absolute hardest fights Sunbreak has to offer, but I think Afflicted Monsters are an excellent addition and offer a really fun challenge. The only bad thing I'd say about them is leveling up all the different quests, but I absolutely love Afflicted Monsters as they are such a good endgame. They're an S for me. I mentioned this a little about Afflicted Monsters, but after defeating them, we can get materials to perform curious crafting, which can upgrade specific parts of our weapons like attacks, sharpness, element, and more, which is great. We can also upgrade our armor by trying to change our skills or changing resistance values, which is really neat. Though I haven't delved too much into the armor side of things, which I know can be pretty crazy with all the skills we can get, but I like the weapon stuff a lot, so it's an S for me, as it just makes Afflicted Monsters all the more worthwhile to fight. With the addition of Sunbreak, we got the ability to take followers on quests, which are AI hunters, aka the characters we got to know on our journey, which is really cool that they can join us on hunts, knowing that these people we've grown to know are actual capable hunters. I honestly wish World had something like this, as we only really saw, what, 2 other people really hunt, being the Raffing guy and the A-lister, so it felt like we were the only one actually doing stuff. But anyway, how are the followers on hunts? Well, they're pretty good actually. They can place traps and sometimes just go off and get another monster to Wyvern Ride, which is really cool, but can also be pretty awful as, well, fight a monster in between zones, which can be really annoying. It's also a bit of a shame that they don't do much damage though, so the best ones are the twins and Utsushi with the hunting horns, so they can at least buff you. But yeah, I really like the followers in Sunbreak. I think they're a really neat addition and just so cool. Plus, apparently they might return in Wilds, so that's awesome. Anyway, I'll rate the followers a solid A because I think they could be just a little better. Okay, now we all know that Monster Hunter is never known for its story. So how is Rise's story? Well, it's decent. It focuses around the Rampage and the cause of it, which is Nara and Ibushi, which also have some weird mind connection with the twins for whatever reason. It's just really weird. And honestly, that's about it for base Rise. I'd say it's a B. It's not the best, and I didn't really care for any of the base Rise characters. The only thing people like is the twins, because they're hot as hell. I'm pretty sure, anyway, I don't know. But anyway, moving on to Sunbreak though, which is actually so much better with all the investigation into Malzeno and the Curio. Plus, the characters in Sunbreak are actually written so much better, and they just really bring the story to life. Plus, the conclusion with Primordial Malzeno is really great, and how it ends with us marrying Fiore. I swear that's what happened. Don't fact check me on that. But yeah, Sunbreak's story is just way better than Rise's, which I would rate an S for Monster Hunter, but combine them together and I'd say you get an A. It's decent. Now, weapons. Woo! Which is really going to be exciting. Just kidding. I won't be ranking weapons as I only use hammer, so it wouldn't really be fair for me to rank them. And I think that's everything in Rise. If I did miss anything, please let me know in the comments and I'll make a pinned comment ranking what I missed. But for now, I just want to talk a bit about Wilds, because I wouldn't make a separate video on it anyway, since it would only be like 5 minutes. So I haven't seen anything Wilds except for the 2 trailers we got. I know some people got to play and have put their thoughts out there, but I don't want other people's opinions to cloud my judgment before I experience these things for myself, so I decided to not see what people had to say. But anyway, I'm really looking forward to Wilds as it looks amazing so far with the changing environments, the weather, and all the small monsters around the place. All the herd stuff looks really cool, though I am a bit worried with how that'll play into hunting the main monster of the herd though. Like, how are we gonna separate it from the herd and all that? But I'm excited to find out. And speaking of the monsters, the ones we've seen so far have been amazing. I love all of them, especially Chotacabra, or however you pronounce it, with his big gator head and frog tongue, with his Rajane looking build. He looks like a fun guy to fight, though I think he is going to be an early monster, so he might be quite easy. We also have the Railgun Lightning Wyvern, which looks absolutely crazy. I saw some people saying that he might be the flagship, but I don't believe that in the slightest. He feels more like how Rathalos was in the Ancient Forest in low rank, being the apex of the region. But yeah, the monsters we've seen so far have been really cool. Now, of course, there are some monsters I want to see return in Worlds though, so I'll share my thoughts on those as well. Number 1 would absolutely have to be Gammoth. I think with how big the areas are now, Gammoth would be an absolute perfect fit. And I would also just absolutely love to see Gammoth in a herd with little tiny Gammoths. I think that'd be amazing. Another monster I would absolutely love to see is Kuropeko. I think it would be a really cool monster to have in Wilds, especially with its call that can imitate other monsters. Like, just imagine if it copied the leader of a herd and summoned a stampeding herd towards you. I think that would be absolutely hilarious and just terrifying. Like, oh, I would love that so much. Now I decided to only choose up to 3 monsters, which was really hard, because there's a lot of monsters I want to see. Like, I want to see more from Frontier, because Espiness was amazing in Rise. Honestly, I would be so happy if Espiness was in Wilds as well. Like, he's just so fun. But I decided to really choose another monster. And honestly, I think I would either have to pick Zamtrios or Tetsukabra, because the baby versions of them in Rise, you had the Zamites in the Frost Islands, and you had the baby Tetsukabra in the Gathering Hub. Like, I would love to see them in Wilds, because they just weren't in Rise, and it felt like they were teasing me with the little ones. But anyway, now that they're done with the monsters I want in Wilds, I don't think there's much else to talk about. I mean, there's the focus mode, which I haven't seen enough of to judge at all. We have the secret, or however you say it, which we can ride and switch to another weapon, which is honestly really cool. I'm probably just going to end up having 2 hammers, honestly, with being different elements. Also, apparently we'll be able to build a camp that can be destroyed by monsters, which sounds neat. But besides all that, we don't really know much about Wilds. I'm just really looking forward to more Monster Hunter, honestly, and everything that they'll add that they haven't shown. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching and getting this far in the vid. I don't think I'll be doing any more Monster Hunter content until a few months before Wild's release, where I think I'll revisit Wild, honestly. But anyway, if you did enjoy this, let me know by leaving a like or comment. And yeah, that's it. Bye bye everyone!